Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to see everyone. Thank you very much for taking your time to come and see us today and to learn about cybersecurity. We really appreciate you making the effort. Now, I'm really excited about today because we've got a fantastic lineup, I think, of some of the best brains and the best communicators in cybersecurity in the UK market. So for those of you who've come to deep dive into security and the latest with it, you're in the right place. But it's my job as a host to put a bit of context on the event. And I'm going to do that by taking a step away from cyber and to look overall at what's happening in the marketplace with small and medium-sized businesses that we generally serve across our businesses. And I'm going to do that with kind of three parts to what I'm going to talk about in the next 20 minutes. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a dive into the market forecasts for small and medium-sized businesses globally. And that's going to give us a sense of what they're buying today, but also most importantly, perhaps, what they're buying in the future, which I think is a really important thing for us to understand. The second thing I'm then going to do is move on to try and give you a bit of a narrative behind what's causing those spending trends to change. And I hope you'll find that a really useful story. And there's some really interesting research that we've gathered from around the world that kind of backs up that story. And last but not least, possibly the most important thing out of this is the third thing I'm going to talk about is reflecting on what's happening in terms of SMBs and their growth. What does that mean for us as a channel? What does that mean for your business? And how do you think about your vision and strategy over the next few years to go after that growth? So that's what I'm going to try and cover. Let's dive straight in if we can. Now, the first thing to say is SMBs in the UK, obviously hugely important marketplace. SMBs represent 50% of UK GDP. They represent about 60% of all employment in the UK. And something like just over 50% of all the profit in the UK economy comes from SMBs. It's an incredibly important market. It's also an incredibly important market to reach for all the vendors that you see around you here today, because SMBs represent around about 45% of all technology spend for businesses in the UK. So it's a really, really critical sector. What this first slide here shows, I hope you can see it at the back, is how SMBs spend their money today. So this is a global view. This is the latest view from Canalys that we got from their Barcelona conference a couple of months ago. So what it shows in the middle here is 2023 SMB spend of just over 2 trillion in the world. Huge number, growing at 3%. Now, 3% is a really interesting number I'll come back to, because if we go back to 2019, that was about 7%. It's really dipped since the pandemic, but the great news is all the forecasts are saying it's coming back. 4% next year, maybe getting back up to 7% in 25. That's really good news. What the donut shows, though, which I think is a really, really interesting point, is where SMBs spend their money today. What do they spend their money on in product terms? And it shows very simply that 43.6% of your SMB customer's wallet is spent on telecoms. It's good to talk, right? Mobile, voice, connectivity, broadband, those sorts of services. Second thing, 25% on IT services. You know, we all know, don't we, that SMBs don't have a lot of their own skills. And of course, that's the great opportunity for the channel to build out services and help SMBs to grow. So 25% in IT services, 13.9% in software, 9.6% in devices, images, and printing. And then look down here, I was quite surprised about these numbers when I saw them, actually. Infrastructure, so if we think about servers and databases, those sorts of things, very small amount, actually, in those terms, spent by SMBs. And then the unified comms, 1.6%. Cybersecurity, only 1.5%. It's not a very good slide to show, is it, in a cyber summit? But, of course, this is a ridiculous way to look at the market, isn't it, and how we build our strategies and how we think about product, because this is what's happening now. If we really want to understand what SMBs need and what they want moving forward, what we need to do is look at the growth forecasts over the next few years, because that donut is going to change quite significantly over the next 5 years. So what this next bit does, these red numbers, this shows compound annual growth rate. So this is Gartner's latest numbers, and this shows compound annual growth rate over the next 5 years forecast. So what this is showing us is that telecom service is only growing at 1.9%. Everyone's got telecoms. It's a utility. There's a bit of substitution going on, but you're not going to grow loads of new business through telecom services. Other low areas, right? Devices, images, and printing, only growing at 1%. Devices, as we all know, have had a really tough time over the last couple of years, right? Everybody refreshed all their devices during the pandemic. We've got the youngest estate of devices out there across the market. Not really great growth. Next year, it's starting to come back into growth, but over 5 years, not much growth. And look at unified comms here, not particularly big growth. But what this does tell us is something much more important. If you really think about what SMBs are wanting in spend terms, it's this. It's software, right? So software growing at 13.3%, what's interesting about that number is that this is on-premise and cloud software. If we strip out on-premise, then the cloud variants of this software as a service are all growing above 20% over the next 5 years. Really, really big point. But if we deploy this software, what do SMBs need? They need help to build that software, to build into the cloud and manage in the cloud, and perhaps most importantly about what we're doing here today, they've got to understand how to secure it. So this is a story really about building and managing secure clouds. That's what that forecast is telling us about, where the SMBs are going in terms of their spend. Now, just deep diving quickly into cybersecurity, because it's a cyber gig, obviously there are lots of factors here driving big cybersecurity interest and cybersecurity spend. The first one here is, 1 in 2 organizations have had a breach this year. So that's a big number, right? 1 in 2 businesses affected. Most businesses don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. So it's going to continue to be a really big problem. Malware, phishing, ransomware, we know what I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion about this today, but those are the top 3 tactics in successful attacks. And above there, one of the other things I was surprised about is SMBs. 47% of all SMBs pay ransomware ransoms when they're asked for it. According to GovUK, the cybersecurity breaches survey from this year, the average cost of a cybersecurity breach to a small business is £4,200. And Vodafone did a really interesting survey earlier this year. They asked small businesses, what would the impact of having to pay £4,200? 19% of them said their business might not survive that. So we get the feeling, don't we, that cyber is a pretty important issue for small businesses. And we know why, right? Even for small businesses, everything's digital, everything's connected, everything can be hacked. So this is driving significant security spend. According to Gartner, it's 10%. According to Analysys Mason, another of the analysts that we follow, the number's about 9.5%. But I think this is quite an interesting slide because it specifically breaks down what's happening in the SMB sector. So the dark purple there is businesses with less than 250 employees, and the light purple above is businesses between 250 and 500 employees. Obviously, there's significant growth there, 9.5%-ish compound annual growth rate, but look at that number at the bottom. By 2026, SMBs will represent 60% of all spending on cybersecurity worldwide. That's why the vendors in this room need the channel, because the channel has the reach into that sector. It is really, really critical for SMBs that the channel engages to get this right. Big drivers, according to Analysys Mason, heightened awareness of cybersecurity risk. We know it's happening all around. Second one, increasing use of mobile. Lots of mobile devices now connecting into the corporate network. And of course, third, adoption of cloud-based solutions. And then the really big drivers, the 3 biggest product areas that are feeding that 10% growth are listed here. Remote management, 15%. Things like ID and access management, IPVPNs, the ways that we can access these systems from a remote context. Securing mobile devices, all these mobiles connecting into the network. How do we secure those? Big growth there, 13.4% next 5 years. And then data security, protecting IPR, protecting the data of the business is well into the, it's 8.5%. Big drivers. Now, that's the big picture of security. What I now wanted to do was just kind of take a bit of a context on that and talk a bit about a narrative about what's actually happening in small businesses that's creating that drive. And the story goes something like this. So if we go all the way back to 2019, right at that end of the graph, it was happy days for selling technology to SMBs. The SMB technology was growing at 7%. But if you ask an SMB back then, the average SMB, is your business reliant upon technology? Most SMBs would say, well, not really. And what was happening was that SMBs were buying technology in quite a fragmented and quite a tactical way. Again, gross generalization, but telco resellers were selling telephone systems to small businesses. IT resellers were selling IT kit and were selling IT services to small businesses. It was a very fragmented supply chain. They might nip down the road and buy their laptops from PC World or somebody like that. Very fragmented and very tactical. And it's one of the big reasons why, when we then came into the pandemic, SMBs were so woefully equipped to deal with what happened. And of course, we all helped, didn't we? We all got to our customers and we helped them set up VPNs and we found them mobile devices and we got them laptops and we got them working. But the thing about the pandemic, of course, is it wasn't one blip and then everything returned to normal, because it fundamentally changed the way that SMBs think about work. It changed the way that they wanted to set up their organizations to support this move to mobile working. And of course, that is the big change that we've seen here. Because by doing that and by moving to remote work, it's no longer acceptable to have a server stuck under your desk where you can't get at the data and get the information. How do I contact and get hold of that information from my mobile device? You can't do it. And what it's done is it's driven for the first time a really big shift in spending for SMBs to get their services into the cloud, to make sure it's secure and to deliver those remote working paradigms that we're talking about. But the most important thing about this slide is the last point where it talks about channel partnerships, because SMBs now are not looking to buy from the channel partners they bought from in 2019. They're looking for somebody who can fix this new set of problems. So just to give you a kind of summary of that story, really, the first thing is, SMBs now are relying on technology. When you ask them, they'll say, my business relies on technology. It's fundamental as an underpinning to my business, number one. Number two, my work environment's changed forever. Remote work is a fundamental paradigm that I've shifted to. Number three, cloud and remote IT services are a must-have. And of course, the security that sits around that. And the most interesting one at the end, I'm now looking for a strategic partner to help me do that, because the partnerships I had in the past are not going to cut it for the partnerships that I need moving forward. I need somebody to build and manage and secure my cloud environments and my move to the cloud. It's a very different skill from that fragmented journey that we had before, and that's the opportunity for us. Now, helpfully, Analysys Mason, who built this story out, based it on huge amounts of research that they've done over the last 10 years. They've been asking SMBs around the world the same questions year after year. Some really interesting things to back up this point about shift to strategic partnerships. The first one here is all about SMB IT spending priorities. Yeah, they have fundamentally changed. So this was done over the summer. And of course, what it's showing there is cybersecurity is the most important priority for small businesses. Now, we've known that for a while. What's really interesting, I think, is number two and number three. They've never been anywhere near the top 10 before, but IT and managed services are now the number two priority for small businesses, and infrastructure is the number three. Now, if we go back to the same survey that was done in 2019, those were the top three: business applications, communication services, and devices and peripherals. So you can see the research is starting to play out the story that I've told about fragmentation and now looking towards a strategic partnership to do this secure cloud building. Second bit of evidence here in terms of research is when Analysys Mason did this work, they asked SMBs, have you switched your strategic partner? Have you switched your channel partner in the last 6 months? And I was amazed by this one. So according to this research, 22% of them, nearly a quarter of them, had switched their primary provider. That's a big number. If you go back to 2019, that number was only 5%. You think, well, that's telling us about how, when it was tactical, I didn't really worry. I had suppliers that I just used for years, and it was all fine, and we had a great relationship. It doesn't cut it anymore. I'm switching because I'm looking for somebody who can help me in this new paradigm. And on the right-hand side, there are reasons for switching. Number one, my current provider lacks the vision and the strategy to take me where I want to go. Number two, my existing provider doesn't have the breadth or the depth of capability to take me where I want to go. What an opportunity if you have those things. And really helpfully, in the same set of research, what Analysys Mason also did is ask this question. They said, when you switched, who did you switch from to? And this was according to the SMB. Who did you switch from to? Another really interesting story. Vendors really suffering. Yeah, people moving away from vendors direct who are offering point solutions. It's not going to solve the SMB's problem. A big move away from retailers, a big move away from resellers and value-added resellers in that old model. And a really big move, according to this research, towards managed services providers who can bring that whole solution together for an SMB. Now, that's the research side of things. What I now wanted to do, I'm about to show you the worst slide that I've ever built in my life, so I apologize for it. But what I've been trying to do is think about, well, what's the blueprint for success for an MSP? What is it about an MSP that can be a strategic partner and can capture that growth for SMBs and to build a brilliant business? And we're in a lucky position in Giacom because we've got about 5,000 partners all buying on our platform. So we can look at the data of how you spend with us. And if I look at that data and I pull out, say, the top 50 partners who are growing fastest with us in these critical areas, I can get a pattern for what those businesses are doing. And I've talked to quite a lot of them about how they're doing it, how they're getting success, how they're getting their growth. And I really apologize for this diagram, but I'm going to have to try and talk it through with you. The broad proposition, and I'm being a hugely generalist here, is going into a small business and saying, I understand that you think that technology is really complicated. You know what? I'm going to make it really simple for you. Come to me and I'll just do everything for you. And I'm going to make it dead easy for you because for £300 a month, per user, per month, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to give you a modern environment. I'm going to look after all your old stuff and migrate into the cloud and get all that stuff sorted for you. And you can have peace of mind and you can sleep at night because everything's going to work for you in the morning. It's that type of proposition that's working. Under the skin, these are the things that we're seeing. There's kind of 4 factors to this. So modern SMBs are taking a bunch of digital products. They're nearly always subscription, whether it's communications, whether it's cloud services, or whether it's hardware. And they're wrapping it together into a value-added subscription product bundle to take out to market. The second quadrant there, I guess, is they're then adding all their value-added services around it, professional services to do migration, cyber essentials training for SMBs, really important. Building managed services out and also building out security, backup and recovery services, yeah? So taking the uniques about your business in professional services and putting them together with a technology bundle. And then 2 really critical things that we see underneath that are markers of success in these SMBs that are growing fastest is the first thing is they recognize that they can't hope to digitally transform their customers unless they digitally transform themselves. So they're investing in OSS and BSS and automation and clever tooling that's enabling them to build products, template them, and get them out to customers at scale, reliably, on time. So that OSS BSS layer is a really critical point we see. And the second point that we see is these MSPs are getting really good at partnering. Partnering because nobody can do everything. Yep. Finding partnerships that work to look after third-party systems, to build enterprise systems that maybe you're not familiar with, maybe contracting with an MSP to do to do SOC services or to do pen testing and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's what we see coming through. And you know what? When they put that together, those businesses can really promise to build proper solutions for small businesses, like new ways of working, better customer services, doing more with less, getting value out of data, because none of those solutions involve a single product. They all involve multiple products, and all 4 of those things coming together in unison to deliver value. So that's what we're seeing. Okay, last slide. Now, just to kind of summarize on this, I guess. Now, I've been quite blunt, I guess, about this move to MSP. Let me be clear. What the market forecasts are showing is a really, really positive story for tech. Yeah, it's a rising tide. 3% growth this year, maybe 4% next year, maybe 7 or 8% the year after, if the world continues to remain reasonably stable. So there's growth for everybody. But what I am saying is that if you want to be a business that's growing at double digit, a lot of these things around modern MSP is the way you'll get it. You can run a business doing different things, but you're less likely to get the growth that I'm talking about here unless you're in that digital MSP kind of category. So that's what we're seeing. Overall, look, don't sell in 2024 like you sold in 2019. It won't work. Yeah, because SMBs have fundamentally changed and they're looking for something different. As a channel partner, you've got to step up and be a strategic partner. You need vision, you need strategy, you need breadth, you need depth in order to do it. And for me, just kind of bring it back to security, really. Figure out how you deliver security. It's a really difficult subject for so many MSPs because it's deep and there's loads and loads of ways that you could do this. It's really hard. Find out how you're going to do this. I don't think there's any escape from having really good security expertise inside your business, but be open to partnership as well with MSSPs, with vendors, with other people that can bring services in to help you deliver it for customers. And of course, we're here to help. That's what the day's about. So come to the Genius Bar, come and have a chat with us. Our business is all about, we've built a platform where you can come and get everything that you need to provide that donut of services for the SMB. That's what we're here to do. And look, I really hope you enjoyed the day. I hope that's been a useful context setting for you all. Thank you.